Question two of lesson four, we're going to look at some data that you might come across working in health economics. This question actually was inspired by a question that I got from the actual textbook. But what I did is I altered the numbers so that every student has a different solution. Recently, the king of the mythical nation of Pecoria was diagnosed with cancer. He noticed that many other nobles in his court had also been diagnosed with cancer recently. He dispatched his two best health economists to study cancer rates in the nation's two towns. Their results are recorded in the table below. Before you begin, recall that this nation has two towns, and those towns are very different. Eastville is a poor area, home to numerous factories that produce incredible amounts of pollution. Weston is the home of the King's Court, and it's filled with pristine parks and hiking trails. So the first thing we want to do is we want to copy this table into Excel. And when you copy a table from the internet, you want to copy the values in the table plus something outside the table. And I'm grabbing the letter A here. And then in Excel, you want to right click on A1 and then choose match destination formatting. And then I'll format this a little bit so we can see it well. Okay, so according to the table above, the health disparity is what? Well, if you look at Eastville, the cancer rate for nobles is 50%. And the cancer rate for nobles is 10% in Weston. For peasants, it's 40 in Eastville and 7 in Weston. So if you're looking at this table, you're thinking the health disparity is nobles get cancer at around double the rate. No. Nobles get cancer at a slightly higher rate, at slightly higher rates than peasants. That looks pretty obvious, 50 and 40, and then 10 and 7. Okay, so let's dig in a little bit deeper. We're going to calculate the nationwide cancer rates for nobles. Nobles with cancer in Eastville equal what? Well, this is the cancer rate, right? That's 50%. Now, 50%, right? Percent means per 100. And because there's no percent symbol to the right of 50, we have to do divide by 100. And then we're going to multiply that by the Eastville population. So that's the number of nobles that get cancer in Eastville. If I pull this down, I get the number of peasants who get cancer in Eastville, right? Because this is Eastville here. And that's Weston, right? Now, the cool thing is I can just copy these two, and it will calculate the number of nobles that get cancer in Weston. And it will calculate the number of peasants who get cancer in Weston, right? So nobles with cancer in Eastville is the product of those two. Well, we got to convert that to a percent though, right? Per 100. So that is 58,500. Nobles with cancer in Weston, we multiply these two together, but we first have to convert that to percent by dividing by 100 because there's no percent symbol up here. And we get 91,300. Now, the nobles with cancer in the nation itself is the sum of the two, right? So I'm going to type equal sum parenthesis, and then I'm going to use my arrow key to highlight the two numbers, and that gives me the sum. And then what's the total number of nobles is that plus that in the nation, right? So we're just adding this number and that number. Now we want to find the cancer rate, right? So the cancer rate is just going to be this ratio here, right? And we want how many decimal places? 2. So the percent word is outside the box. So what we want to do is we want to include the percent symbol. So we're going to type 14.54. Now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to find these values for peasants. Okay, so we're just going to drag this down. This is going to sum the number of peasants in Eastville that have cancer with the number of peasants who have cancer in Weston, right? Remember how we got these two numbers. We multiply these two numbers after we converted 40 to a percent, right? And we do the same thing with this, right? Right. This is the number of peasants who have cancer. This is the number of peasants with cancer in the nation. This is the number of peasants in Eastville that have cancer. This is the number of peasants in Weston that have cancer. And then we're going to drag this down. And that's going to give us the total number of peasants in the nation. And then I'm going to drag this down. And it's going to take the ratio of the number of peasants who have cancer divided by the number of peasants in the nation. And the cancer rate is a lot higher for peasants. The aggregate cancer rate is much higher for peasants than it is nobles. So if you're comparing these two numbers together, and you compare these two numbers, it looks like nobles have higher cancer rates, right? And so initially, the health disparity looked like nobles get cancer at slightly higher rates than peasants, right? But according to these aggregated values, right, we just aggregate to the nobles in the country, we aggregate to the peasants in the country, and we see that the cancer rate amongst peasants is almost twice that of nobles. So peasants get cancer not at a slightly higher rate. Peasants get cancer at around double the rate of nobles. The discrepancy between parts A and B is called what? Notice that the 14.54 cancer rate amongst all nobles is kind of between the 10 and the 50, right? So what's going on here is this is a weighted average of the 10 and the 50. Now, which gets more weight, Weston or Eastville? For the nobles, Weston gets more weight because there's 913,000 nobles in Weston and only 117,000 nobles in Eastville. So this 14.54 is closer to the 10 because this number is so much larger than that number, right? And now notice the 28.85. 28.85 is closer to the 40, right? It's about what? 29 to 40. That's about 11 percentage points away from 40, but it's 20 percentage points away from 7. Why is that? Because Eastville has a huge peasant population. So this 40 is going to get more weight than this 7. This 10 is going to get more weight than this 50. So the weighted average of 50 and 10 is pulled to the 10 because of this. This is so much larger than that. This is almost 9 times larger than that. So of course, the weighted average of 50 and 10 is going to be closer to the 10, which it is, right? Now this weighted average is closer to the 40. Right? The skewing is not quite as large, but This weighted average is gonna be closer to the 40. Why? Because there's a lot of peasants in Eastville, almost double the peasants in Weston. It's called Simpson's paradox.